Hi everyone, it's Diane. Thanks for showing up today. And if this is your first time here, thank you. Welcome. Welcome to our leadership journey that we're sharing together. If it's your 10th time here, then way to go for persevering and to spending some time together on a regular basis. Today's topic is a challenging one, and I like to frame it: "What's the fuss about trust?" And when we think about the fuss about trust, we realize it's the foundation to so much of our leadership work, and particularly in the context of developing other people and how important it is to create a team or an environment where trust is a foundation. A very wise person by the name of Patrick Lencioni is the guru when it comes to sort of team dynamics, if you will. I guess we'll call them that. And his work talks about a pyramid for a high functioning team. And the very bottom of the pyramid, so there are 5 levels to the pyramid. A little bit hard for me to show you, but this kind of is like the pyramid here, like that. 5 levels to the pyramid. Level number 1 is trust. And when we talk about the dysfunctions of a team, I think we would all agree with Lencioni that the number 1 dysfunction of a team, or that foundational level, is an absence of trust. And when you don't have trust on a team, it's very difficult to be vulnerable. It's very difficult to feel safe, to have that confidentiality, to have that foundation that allows a team to go on to do great things, or allows sort of a culture of development of other people on that team. So bottom level is trust. It's only through achieving that bottom level that we can move up the pyramid, if we will, to being a high-performing team. And the second level of that pyramid is about conflict and an ability of a team to have healthy conflict about ideas. Not necessarily, well, not at all, personality conflicts, but conflict and discussion about different ideas. And it's only when we have that foundation of trust that we are able to have that healthy conflict. And when we can have that healthy conflict, it then scoots us up to the next level, which is about a shared commitment through clarity and focus. When we have that foundation, the next level is about accountability and being able to hold each other accountable. And then the fifth one is being able to have shared outcomes. So again, those are the 5 components of a high functioning team. What we're here to talk about today is this fuss about trust, and that trust is the absolute foundation to that. If you want to read more about Lencioni's work or watch him on YouTube or wherever it is, I'd encourage you to do a quick Google search, and you will find all sorts of information about that. But today our specific topic is about trust and how important that is in terms of our work, both with teams and with people. So trust is about as gray as it comes. You know, I often talk in our leadership work about how sometimes we're looking for a very concrete or a tangible answer. If you do this, then this will happen. It's kind of the black and white of leadership. And in my experience, and I would think any leader's experience, we operate way more in the gray than we do in the black and the white. So trust is one of those things that is very gray, and when you have it, you know it, and when you lose it, you mourn for it. And I think that oftentimes we don't even contemplate that. It's something we take for granted, whether good or bad. So what I would say is that in sort of understanding this nebulous concept of trust, there may be cases where I trust you, but you don't trust me. There may be cases where I trust somebody on the team, but I don't trust somebody else as much. I may have had experiences in my own personal life that have either helped me to trust more easily than others, or helped me to be, or not helped me, but hindered me in trusting others because I have had my trust in somebody breached. And one of the cool things about leadership is everybody comes to the team, to the table with their own personal experiences. It's what makes us authentic leaders who all have our own strengths and challenges. But what I would say is that sometimes with trust, when we're not able to develop that trust, it is because of people's past experiences, and that can be challenging. I think the other thing about trust to remember is it sometimes takes years to develop trust. Sometimes it's days, sometimes it's months, sometimes it's weeks, but oftentimes it's years, and that's challenging too. Because the thing is, as long as it takes to build trust, it takes very little time to break trust. And once trust has been broken, then it's all the more difficult to rebuild that trust. So it is something as leaders we really need to contemplate and think about and understand, I think, a bit more. So I want to talk about sort of the three aspects. I don't know what they're called, but let's call them aspects of trust. The first is the number one person you need to trust is yourself. If you don't trust yourself, then it's actually going to be incredibly difficult to trust anyone, whether it's personally or professionally. So trusting yourself is one of the things that we spend a lot of time in our leadership work about. And really, what does that mean? It means self-confidence. It means understanding who you are and knowing that you are putting your best foot forward, the best of intentions, all of those kinds of things. So trusting yourself to make decisions or to work with people or to do the best job you possibly can. And the beauty of a leadership journey is the more you trust yourself, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the more risks you take, the more you see that you can actually recover from failure or things that just didn't work out the way that you thought they might, the more you're able to trust yourself. So in our leadership work, where we talk about leading self first and then leading others, leading self is all about learning to trust yourself. When we're learning to trust others, or we're trying to focus on trusting others, oftentimes it has to do with our personal relationship. And so how is it that we form relationships with others where we have mutual trust in that relationship? And there are a variety of factors that can either improve that or break that. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. And then trust at work. The only way that we can possibly develop other people and really focus on creating environments where people can be given the space and the safety to develop themselves and for us to help to develop others is by creating an environment of trust. So we may have worked in environments where micromanaging and sort of getting in the way and all of that kind of stuff has been prevalent, and that in no way builds that environment that we're talking about when it comes to creating an environment where developing others is a priority. So there's a number of things on a team that actually help us to develop that trust. I think some of the words that have been talked about by plenty of expert people, smart people, are things like shared value system and understanding what each other's values are and spending time talking about that so that you can create that foundation. Sincerity, saying what you mean, speaking with integrity, consistency and reliability. There's nothing worse than somebody saying, yeah, I'll meet you here, or yes, I'll show up for that shift, or whatever it might be, telling you they're going to do something and then not following through on that. And that's a real quick and easy way to erode trust in the relationship. The other thing is a relationship. We tend to trust people more when we have a relationship with them. And so sometimes that means finding common ground. And sometimes that's more difficult with some individuals than it is with others. You may have 2 or 3 people on your team who you're like, oh man, we're completely on the same page. We like the same things. We really are good at working together. And then you may have others on your team who it takes a little bit more effort to reach out, to get to know each other, to develop a personal relationship. And it's always worth it in the end, because in terms of, I think, increasing trust, that's one way that we can definitely do that. Commitment is another one. We tend to trust people who are committed to the same goal that we are, that are on the same page as we are when it comes to what the goal is and how it is we're going to accomplish it. We also want to trust people who are competent, who, are good at what they do, and who lead by example. I think maybe we've all worked at some point in our careers with somebody who has been a very bad example. They don't create a trusting environment. They're in it for themselves. There's a variety of other things there. And how it is that we actually can learn from those lessons of people who are not great at that, to internalize it ourselves and say, you know what, that's not the way I want to be. So I think that's, those are some of the things that we think about when we talk about trust and developing that trusting environment. I think the other couple of more aspects to a trusting environment. We've talked about leading by example. I think the other thing is communicating openly, because in the absence of communication, people usually make stuff up. And it's just really important in terms of creating a trusting environment to make sure that you are communicating openly and letting people know about what's going on, being as transparent as you possibly can. When you don't know, the best thing to say is, I don't know. I'll find out, or we'll have to wait to figure out what's happening there. But communicating openly is a really important piece of that. We've talked about knowing each other personally. I think the other thing is not placing blame. Sometimes when a team doesn't trust each other, there's a lot of this going on. Well, that was your fault. Well, you were supposed to do that. Well, why didn't this happen? And if those are the kinds of conversations that are happening on a team, then those are challenging and difficult. So making sure that the environment that you're creating is not one where you're blaming each other. And I think, too, in developing trust in your team, cliques are a thing that are easily formed and can do a lot of damage. So if you have a team of 5 people, let's say, and there are 3 people who really get along well together, and they start hanging out all the time, they've got inside jokes, they've got all of the bad things about being in a clique. It may be great if you're one of those 3 people, but if you're not, if you're one of the other 2, then that's not a good place to be. And so being very inclusive on your team and making sure that everybody has an equal voice and people are treated as a group, not as a clique, not as those who are in and those who are out. I think that's a key consideration. And then if your team is struggling with trust, just having a discussion about struggling with trust and doing some work as a team together on how it is that you can further develop trust on your team. The reason, the fuss about trust is that what we're going to talk about in further sessions is about developing other people. And in my experience, it's incredibly difficult to develop other people if people don't feel safe, if people don't feel that they're on a team that is a trusting team. And the development of other people is the number one job of a leader. And one of the things that we talk about in our leadership work is that there are lots of bosses who are not leaders, and there are lots of leaders who are not bosses, and leaders develop other people. Bosses may supervise, bosses may have the authority, but leaders develop other people. And so you don't need to have a title to be somebody who develops other people. You don't need to have a fancy corner office or, be the supervisor of anybody to develop other people. And I think that as a leader, is something to focus on, is that much of this work around trust building and how it is that you work with your colleagues can happen from anywhere. And so I hope this has been helpful to you. The fuss about trust is real. It's hard. It's rocky sometimes, but I would definitely encourage you to, to spend some time and take a look further at the importance of trust and the importance of creating a trusting team so that you can develop others in your leadership. So thanks for showing up again today, and we'll see you again next time.